Alrighty, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jesse, VK2ZJB. You'll hear me around in the repeater occasionally. I've only been an amateur for a couple of years, but I've jumped in it, as you see, and really gotten stuck into a few different technologies, a few different things. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about our digital repeater and a little bit about DMR and digital radio technologies all in all. So there's no point in saying, hey, here's our digital repeater, off you go have fun, without saying, how does it work? Now, I've heard people talking around on HF, on repeaters and whatnot that have said, hey, this digital thing's crap. I mean, you get on there and anyone can push a button, talk anywhere in the world, there's no challenge in it. I'm here to show you tonight, there is challenge in it. There is a social networking aspect of it, so communicating with other amateurs, that's not highly condition dependent. But the reason I've done this is because I personally want to learn more about digital technologies and how these things work. Now there's a number of different modes out there. You might be familiar with D-Star, but we have had a D-Star repeater here in the past. There's Fusion, DMR, P25, and these just the tip of the iceberg. These are digital FM, for lack of a better term, type modes. Now, D-Star has been designed from the ground up for amateurs. Technology-wise, I prefer the way D-Star works. I prefer the underlying architecture. I personally find it difficult to work with. Fusion, it comes from a number of different places. So you see I've got in brackets there bandwidths and modulation techniques. So D-Star's GMSK, Gaussian Minimum Shift Keying. It's a fairly advanced way of keying. It's not PSK as you know it, and uses a very complex filter, but it's very efficient. C4FM is actually a modulation technique of its own. I don't know a great deal about that one. It's basically 4 PSK, or 4 phase shift keying phases, I think it actually is. DMR is 4 FSK, and P25 is also C4FM modulation. Now, here's where it starts to get a bit tricky. D-Star, 6.5 kilohertz bandwidth. So if you looked up, you put on Spectrum Analyzer, it's going to take up 6.5 kilohertz. Fusion, if you're only running one channel and audio only, it runs 6.5 kilohertz. If you run audio and data, high quality audio or any of the other modes that Fusion provides, you'll run 12.5 kilohertz. DMR and P25. On a spectrum analyzer, they will be 12.5 kilohertz wide. However, they run 2 streams in that. They use what they call TDMA, Time Division Multiple Access. So if we have a look at our stream of information, they chop it up into a number of different groups. So DMR that we know that we're using here, that's 2 time slots. They like to say the effective bandwidth is 6.5 kilohertz. I mean, I'm sorry, bandwidth is bandwidth, 12.5 kilohertz, you're just using half of it and you can run 2 channels. P25, very much the same. Now the multiple access things, you'll hear this term a lot, especially when talking about digital radio. TDMA, FDMA and CDMA. Now you'll know CDMA from mobile phones. Your old GSM mobile phones, they're TDMA. And they're a miserable device because TDMA, turning that amplifier on and off, that signal on and off, is what made everything buzz. Miserable machine. FDMA, frequency division multiple access. A crude form of FDMA is your different channels on your FM radio. But when you're talking about FDMA in digital terms, you are literally talking about dividing a 12.5 kilohertz slot into 2 frequency divided slots. Very, very expensive, very, very rare, and very accurate. Yeah, that's why it's expensive and rare, because it's got to be very, very accurate. CDMA, you will see that in mobile phones. I don't even have the time or the knowledge to go into the ins and outs of CDMA. The division of that is done via code. You've got a set of codes, you've got a wide data stream. Your set of codes will help you bring your information out of that data stream. CDMA is used extensively in current mobile phones. 3G, 4G is all CDMA. Satellites coincidentally, are also CDMA. So your satellite TV comes down, it's also CDMA. So, DMR specifically. So what we're doing here, we've taken our C4 FM repeater, which will maintain one transmitting C4 FM radio at a time, the same as any old FM repeater. I've put some equipment in here that will now do DMR and will support the other modes as well. DMR, I can transmit on two radios standing next to each other at the same time, as long as they're on different time slots. So you will still hear, so if I sit in my lounge room with these as I'm testing it, I've got a subwoofer that is less than ideal quality. You hear the subwoofer go dum 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 as I'm transmitting. That's because it's transmitting on every second time slot. But that means that you and I can stand next to each other, talk on two different time slots, and unlike FM radio or a handheld, I'm not going to desense your signal, you're not going to desense mine, and we'll both get it.
Is that, well, that was the same theory with your old GSM mobile phone.
Correct.
As well.
Yes. GSM mobile phones work that way because that was part of the design. The unfortunate part of the design is all of the interference pieces.
No, they were crap.
Now, digital. How many of you here have worked digital modes? PSK is a good example. How many of you here have worked and are familiar with PSK? So this isn't entirely different. Still PSK, still phase shift keying. However, those of you that have used things like IARS, IARS packet radio, you'll know that your signal's got to be spot on for that to work. Now the advantage of these technologies is all of them have what they call forward error correction. So as I package up my information that I want to send, be it voice, I look at it and go, I know that's not going to get to the other end, I need to include some form of CRC. Now it's got to be done in such a way that the CRC check isn't necessarily just in this packet, there is one in the one before it, one in the one after it, so that if I miss this packet in the middle, I've got enough in the other two packets to build it back. In loose terms, or specifically it's called FEC or forward error correction. So you see we've got the graph up here, I've lifted blatantly from the DMR site about the audio quality. So FM radio has always been very good to us, and I've had someone already ask me tonight, do you think digital will take over? I'm a big fan of digital, don't get me wrong, I don't want to let go of my FM radio because my ears can hear things that will not pass digital. And you can't beat good old analog, I'm afraid. However, where digital will come into its own with the use of forward error correction is where the audio quality degrades, the error correction picks up. Because we're picking up that information out of two different packets and combining it, when we lose packets, we have enough information there to maintain our audio quality. So what that does, it basically gives us the illusion of better range or more efficiency. Now, not all FEC algorithms are created equal. There are many, many types of FEC algorithms. Some of the simplest ones, or the best way to explain it, is transmitting every bit 3 times. So bit 1, bit 2, bit 3 will go out, well 8 bits will give you 16, 20, 24 bits will be transmitted. Of those 24 bits, they take a vote and say out of the first 3 bits, we wanted it to be 1, we've received 1, 1, 0. Okay, 2 out of 3 is 1. It's a basic form of forward error correction. It gets wildly more advanced than that. Now, FEC algorithms are part of what makes the digital technology. So, while I'm a fan of the bandwidth of D-Star and the underlying technology behind it, the FEC code behind it is known to be slow. It's very slow to recover, which also makes it CPU intensive. But you'll often find that the slower ones to recover actually have a higher error tolerance. DMR is down the other way. It's actually very quick to recover, which makes it a lot more tolerable to use. However, it doesn't give you the extra range that the slower FEC algorithms would use. The biggest difference between all of those technologies that we saw, D-Star, DMR, P25 and Fusion, is the different error correction or forward error corrections that they use. That makes a very, very big difference. So as an idea, so you look here, just a diagram. You take your source data, you encode it, so you've got more data here with the error correction. You might lose some of the information there, and with what you get, you can decode it and reconstruct it. That's the general gist of it. But that's what gives you the range, and that's what gives you the extra coverage there. So, the hardware. So what have I done? There is a device out there now, we call it MMDVM modem. Multi-mode digital voice module modem. I don't know what the last M is. We've used the club's DR1. Sorry?
Oh, just
Yeah.
hardware you got there.
So I've used the club's DR1 fusion repeater, which Rob was nice enough to bring down for me. From there, I've got a Raspberry Pi and a 3G development board that I've used for our internet connection. So what you're actually seeing in this box here in front of you, up the top is our fusion repeater, and in the box underneath, I've got our Raspberry Pi and the 3G modem. So on the back, you can't see it, I've got a couple of magnetic antennas stuck there, so that this unit's now completely portable. It can go up in our repeater site. We don't need to worry about linking back on 2.4 gig or 5 gig to anybody's house, any of that sort of stuff. This is probably, at an estimate from what testing I've done so far, going to cost me $50 or $60 a month in internet to keep it running. As you might imagine, your speed is roughly 9600 bits flat out. That's not a lot. It's pretty tolerant. It doesn't need a huge amount of bandwidth. Latency is an issue though. So if you have an internet connection that's really fast but has a lot of latency, you're going to get a lot of latency in your communications as well. Now, the networks. We've got two different competing networks at the moment. DMR MARC and Brandmeister network. The MARC network's the Motorola Amateur Radio Club, for lack of a better term, network. This is basically headed up by Motorola. The MARC network runs, up until recently, ran exclusively on commercial hardware. They would not support the use of what they deem to be homebrew repeaters, which is what we've got here. Very, very solid network, very, very good, but it lacks the visibility and the usability of the Brandmeister network. And with this repeater, I can organise to turn on Fusion, to turn on P25, to turn on D-Star, or turn them off depending on what people want to do. If you want to be on a net or something like that, we can organise times to do all of that sort of stuff. The MARC network, well, we would have needed commercial hardware. If we put it up there on 875, we lose Fusion, we don't have that flexibility, and you pretty much need to be a Motorola engineer to run it. The commercial hardware is relatively complex. However, one thing to note, all DMR users must register for a DMR ID. The IDs, they're not particularly complex, but everyone's got to have a unique ID worldwide. And you have to go onto the DMR MARC network to register that ID. Don't look too closely now to the network. Now, you can see here I jumped on, perhaps very much at the last minute, to register our club for a DMR ID so everyone can have a bit of a play. This is quite simply, all I did was enter in the call sign. It brings up who it is from QRZ, where you belong, where it goes to. So this email has gone off to Rob, XIC, and you click register, and that is it. It'll take a day, maybe 2 days to come through with the ID. I'll show you a little bit later on about using that. Now, Brandmeister network. This is basically what this hardware is designed to use. Now, the MRC network, with the advent of DMR Plus, does support the use of the MMDVM homebrew repeaters. Personally, I still prefer to stick with the Brandmeister network. This website is called brandmeister.network. You can actively see everything that's going on worldwide on the Brandmeister network in DMR, in Yaesu, in D-Star, the whole lot. Very, very easy to use, very, very good looking website, quite intuitive. There's not much you have to do. I will take you guys on there in a minute and I'll show you how it all works when we go into demonstrating actually using the equipment. And also through the registration process and what things look like from our repeater side and what things look like from the network website. Now, Talk groups. So we haven't really touched on this. So we know that we need to use a unique ID for your digital radio. Now, how we work out who we want to talk to on the DMR network is done via talk groups. There are thousands of talk groups. So you can consider them a little bit like, say, internet chat rooms perhaps. You dial up a number and decide who you want to talk to. Now, demonstrating tonight, I will jump on talk group 91, which is worldwide. Now, you've got to remember, so you already know that it's rude to hog your local repeater, and if you key it up and ka-chunk it, everybody hears it. Well, if you don't sit there and ka-chunk on talk group 91, you will ka-chunk every DMR repeater on the Brandmeister network in the world. And when you register with that ID, it'll show up on the radio, so they know it's you that's ka-chunking it. So there's no anonymity, there's no hiding. The advantage though is, so when we get more of these repeaters, there's anyone that's heard me on the repeater, I work in Liverpool, so I drop in and out of range all of the time. If we were running this on a Brandmeister repeater and there's another repeater in range, I can actually literally change over to the other repeater, join the same talk group and still talk to the same people seamlessly. You'll never know that we're going through a different area. Worldwide, I've spent a bit of time on this talking worldwide. There's a fellow, Trevor, that I was speaking to the other night. I tried to catch him tonight. And part of the demonstration, we'll see if we can get him. You use that a lot. Normally the idea would be you would key up on worldwide, you would start a communication with someone, and ideally it doesn't work the way I want it to, but you would key in the ID and you would talk to that ID and the call would be routed specifically to the repeater that person is on. Now, I can set up on the repeater talk groups in a static route. So I can say we always want talk group 91, we always want talk group 505, which is Australia-wide, we always want talk group 5052, which is New South Wales-wide. You can also do dynamic routing. So if there's a talk group that you want to use, if you are perhaps interested in talking into the UK, the US, Germany, you can key up that talk group, ka-chunk the repeater once, and that will set up a dynamic route, so that route will go through to that talk group. Pardon me. From the next transmission, you'll hear whoever's active on that talk group, and you can then interact. The moment you stop, it times out the dynamic route and disappears. So just because I haven't set up a static route does not mean that you cannot use it. Now, talk groups you think of a little bit like, say, CT/CSS codes. If I've set on 123 and you're on 91.5, when I key up, your radio doesn't key up. You can, however, see that there's activity. Talk groups are the same. If you're on, say, talk group 505 on slot 1 and I'm on talk group 91, I am actively communicating with talk group 91. You will see activity on your radio. You'll see the green light, it's activity on your radio. But unless you've got it set to what we call promiscuous mode, you're not actually going to hear anything. And your radio should be configured to be polite, so that if you try to key up, it will not transmit over the top of people. That's good manners. You can program it out, please don't. What you can, however, do is jump on time slot 2. And if nobody's on time slot 2, you can actively start using time slot 2. On the DMR MARC network, both time slots are used for different purposes. So you'll find time slot 1 might be used for international, time slot 2 might be used for local. On our repeater, they're dynamic. So if I'm on 91 on time slot 1, you can jump on time slot 2 and go 505 and talk Australia-wide if you want to. You can key up another one of your dynamic routes to US, UK if you want to, and talk on there. And then you can both talk concurrently, using the same frequency, using the time slot technique that we were talking about earlier.
So Jesse, that's using one particular mode. You can't have someone using D-Star and someone else using C4FM.
That is correct. That's limitations of the technology. So this is something we need to come up with a good way of managing, because I am not a fan of saying, hey, you can't use the technology. But what we can do, we can turn on all technologies. We can turn on DMR, we can turn on D-Star, we can turn on Fusion, we can turn on P25. The problem, where we run into problems, and I ran into enough trouble by myself at home testing, is if I connect the D-star repeater to a reflector that's quite active, every time there's activity on the reflector, it keys up my repeater here on that technology, and I cannot use the other technologies until it keys down. Now your radio will be fine, it'll come on, it'll indicate that there's activity, you won't be able to join the activity. Anybody else that's on that technology will hear that and can join that and use that as you would. So if I'm actively using DMR, anybody else can jump on and use DMR, different talk groups, whatever they like. You cannot jump on and use D-Star, you cannot jump on and use Fusion, you cannot jump on and use P25.
You mentioned earlier that if you had a seamlessly go and your radios change to a different repeater, I'm assuming that's what's
Semi-seamlessly. You still have to change from repeater to repeater. Some radios do support repeater roaming, where if they get it out of one repeater, they will roam to another programmed repeater. None of the two radios I'll show you tonight will, but it is possible. There are radios that equipment out.
What's the method by which it allows that seamless transfer on the radios and stuff that have that facility?
RSSI, so it looks at your signal strength and packets dropped. If you're losing too many packets, and it knows there's another repeater it can hear from.
So you previously used your radio with the nearby repeaters of the channel?
You will have to code it, yes.
So you proved it like a trunking network would?
Yes.
So that it would actually key up all this control signals?
Yeah, but they are much more expensive radios than your cheap Chinese radios. Like your professional DMR Motorola radios would definitely do that. The cheaper $120 radios, not so much. But it is a matter of zoning, so if you know that we've got brandmaster networks around, you can set it up so you can switch on a zone from one repeater to another. If you get it bad, flick to another repeater and try again, you'll be pretty right. There isn't enough repeaters in this area though for that to work just yet. Sydney is slowly going that way. There is a big uptake of brandmaster up in Newcastle. You could definitely do that up there. But yeah, not so much around this area just yet, but ideally the technology does support the use of that. DMR radios. Now you've noticed I've stuck mostly with DMR, we haven't gone too much into Fusion and the D-Star technologies. Most of what I want to cover tonight is the differences between the technologies and the fact that our repeater does support it, and we do need to work out a way that we can actually deal with that and live harmoniously. I will show you when I demonstrate from outside of the repeater how we can turn that stuff on and off and change it. But for the purposes of this, I assume you've tried to use Fusion, I assume that you've used D-Star or know somebody that has. With a bit of luck, hopefully some of you have even used P25. I personally haven't had a lot of experience there. Now this is where I think that DMR is going to come into its own. DMR radios are not terribly expensive. This little radio here, I can get them for $120 each. They are I find them a little cumbersome to use, but once they're programmed. It's just a matter of selecting a zone and basically changing channels, the same as you would on a pre-programmed radio. This other radio I've got here, that one's about $260. This is my new radio, it's my new favourite radio because it's actually 10 watts handheld. It will do UHF, VHF, FM, and it'll also do D-Star, and it's made for us amateurs. So I can program in a lot of talk groups, I can program in a lot of repeaters, it's very easy to key up, it's very easy to change wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Whereas the cheaper $120 one you'll find a little bit more cumbersome, you need to plan ahead a bit more. But it is a good step into the technology. Now obviously you can also go into, as we've touched on earlier, the Motorola brands, the Hetra brands. If you've picked up a second-hand DMR radio, everywhere's got them. For those of you that don't know, I work in Liverpool Hospital. All of our security, all of our cleaners, they all run Hetra DMR radios. Very, very, very common radios. You can pick them up pretty much anywhere. Again, programming it, there's a little bit in programming it, but there's a lot of tools out there to help you do it. if people are starting to use this technology, I am more than happy for anyone to get in touch with me and go, hey, help, how do I do this, how do I do that? And I can help program through it. The TYT radios, to use them, so again, as I said, DMR is a repurposed commercial technology. So D-Star Fusion, they're designed specifically for amateurs. All the gear you buy for those is amateur gear. It's straightforward, it's built in a way that our minds work in the way of transmitting, receiving, and how we expect things to go. DMR, as I said, is a repurposed commercial technology, and it's designed around that. So it's not designed to be field programmable, a lot of these radios, simply because, well, if I handed a cleaner a DMR radio and said, hey, here's your form of communication for a day, I don't want them screwing with that, especially being that that system is licensed, not that cleaner. They could breach license conditions straight away by messing with that. Where we are licensed individually, we are responsible for what our radios do, and we like them to be a lot more flexible because we have a tendency to go, hey, I want to do this, hey, I want to do that. This could be up and running for 12 months. I could be here talking to one of you guys, you might say, hey, have you heard this talk group? Oh no, I might want to key it up there and then and have a look, have a listen, have a talk. TYT can be done, not easily. This radio, easy, key it in. The Motorola, the Hetero ones, again, not so easy to key up, but they are indestructible, they are higher quality, they deal with the digital information better. Those of you that have gone looking, the Baofeng radios, that one's an FM one, but there are very similar ones out there. I think it's a GT5D, I think it was from memory, or something along those lines, a UV5D. They advertise that they're a DMR radio. They are what they call a Tier 1 DMR radio. All of this equipment, so our Brandmeister equipment, the MARC network, every bit of amateur DMR equipment is actually Tier 2. So you have to use a Tier 2 radio. So if you go and buy a cheap $50 Baofeng radio, you'll find you actually have to pay Baofeng for a code to unlock the Tier 2 functionality, which brings you back into the cost range of the TYT radios anyway. So just buyer beware. Again, if in doubt, feel free to flick me an email and say, hey, I want to buy this radio, how can I get this radio? And I'll come back.
What exactly is this Tier 1 to not clear?
Okay, so yeah, this is what happens when I do things late at night. Okay, so the three different tiers, different levels of the technology. So Tier 1 is the first level of DMR. It's a very crude frequency division, FDMA kind of architecture, one frequency, one time slot, as I understand it. Tier 2 is the TDMA, it's the one that we've been talking about today. And that has two time slots, multiple talk groups. Tier 3 is a newly emerging technology that actually is it uses a lot more bandwidth. It does spread spectrum, different what do you call it, encoding, different form of encoding. Not necessarily compatible, but some Tier 3 radios may support Tier 2.
So they may support legacy support.
Yeah, legacy support. Yeah, that's right. So we are looking at DMR Tier 2 systems at the moment. I don't know of any amateur-based Tier 3 systems. It's not to say they don't exist, I'm just not aware of them just yet. Before we move on, is there any questions about what I've gone over? Any other questions? Any other comments? Nope.
Could you go back one slide?
Yep.
That Alonsort is pronounced
Yep.
radio. You said it can do D-Star.
No. DMR. It'll do DMR, UHF FM, VHF FM. It'll do DMR on VHF and UHF. That's one thing, thank you for reminding me. The cheap $120 one only operates on UHF. There's not a ton of DMR VHF repeaters around, so I don't think you're missing out on a great amount there, but they are only UHF. Alright, so I'm going to jump across
practical point of view, you could almost turn the whole thing into a tracking system where you decide that time slot 2 in every channel becomes a control channel. Tracking.
That's coming up much closer to tier 3, or very similar to the GSM system.
And
So
then there's truly full roaming and just stay on your talk group and
Yep.
away you go.
Yep,
And you
that's
don't
right.
have to touch your radio.
that's what tier 3 is designed for, large sites and that sort of stuff. So they use the tier 3 spread spectrum, but it does have the trunking channel, and that's exactly how it goes. It works out where it can transmit in that spectrum, and it'll change depending on your interference, on your range, and it will change sites, all that sort of stuff. Very, very advanced stuff.
And that information is provided to the radio dynamically.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it becomes
Very similar to similar to GSM. So GSM operates a trunking channel, call-in channel.
on-off,
Yep.
network knows where the thing is.
That's right.
Send data
Yep.
where it's
No one's using
placed,
it.
it's at.
Yep,
They
that's right.
could do it.
Alrighty, so what I'm going to do is going to bring up, let's have a quick look at the DMR, the Brandmeister network, internet.
NBN. Yes, say for it. Yes, say for it.
Oh, the earlier.
Let's try this now. No technical presentation is complete without technical problems. Alrighty, so this is the live Brandmeister website. Now there's a couple of different aspects of it. So there's a quick map up here that shows you which countries are active at any one given time. So let's tee it up. Hopefully Australia will go active in a second. Yep, there we go. That's my name. Yes, I made the whole of Australia red. It was bad. I kept it up and I didn't even speak. Smack on the wrist for me. Now, there's a last heard list. So you can go down here and have a bit of a look at who the last person heard was, or last people heard. It's a little slow to load the data, but once it's loaded, it's really quite good. It's difficult to see from back there, but you're talking DMR time slot 1. I think that one, no, that's not D-Star. There's D-Star ones that will show up in there as well, you see quite commonly. And as time goes on, so you can see reflectors, repeaters. Let's see if I can.
What was that? Old Chinese and Italian.
There's a lot of activity all over the world. So there's France, Japan, New Zealand, UK. Yep, on and on and on the list goes. As you can see, there's a hell of a lot of activity that's going on there. You can see here, now you can actually see a bit more clearly, DMR time slot 1, DMR, DMR, DMR.
And yours here, your ka-chunk?
Been and gone.
Yeah.
It's into the distance. As you see, they move through there very, very quickly. But if you're sitting here watching it, you can actually see talk groups. So if you see an active talk group, 2731, you might want to go and join that talk group. So if you're sitting at your computer, you want to have a look, or on your mobile phone, you can actually watch this on your phone if you want to. You can look at the talk groups and go, oh, that one's very active. Go and join that talk group, have a bit of a listen, and jump in.
Presumably, you could just load this up on your computer at home and listen to the talk groups willy-nilly as you like.
Yes.
That's where I'm going next. So you can see there are hotspots, repeaters, and masters. That'll just give you a list of all of those. Now down here, services, hose line. So if you want to work out whether or not you want to get into this, there's the hose line page. Now, everything that we do over the DMR network flows over the internet. Hits our repeater, goes to the internet, gets routed in a similar manner to telephone traffic, ADX traffic, and goes through the hose line. Why? Yep, no technical presentations complete without a technical failure. Hose line's not coming up there for me, but it does show, again, the active list of conversations that are going on. You can click on it, you can hear the conversation as it's happening. you obviously can't take part in it. Where we go? Come on. There we go. So let's on German talk group.
Not expecting the Twitch.
I don't know if it's going to be that nice for me.
Try 91, should be a fair bit of activity.
There's a little bit of activity on 91, yeah. So you can come up to the talk groups part and you can go and find a talk group there. 91, go. Let's have a look. Let's create some activity.
Starting.
CQ, it's VK2ZJB, 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 demonstrating DMR. There we go. So that's gone out to the entire world. I'm just demonstrating DMR. There we go. JJ4 VML, VK2ZJB. I've actually got you here in front of our entire radio club, just demonstrating DMR. Thank you for the callback. And feel free to say hello.
It's very nice to meet you. My name is Eva, Hotel Italia Sierra Alpha. My handle is Eva. Actually, someone named Eva. And I live in Hiroshima City, Japan. It's the 36 in the evening. And back to you. It's a Kilo 2, Zulu Juliet Bravo. This is Juliet 4, Victor 19 hours. Over.
Juliet 4, Victor, Mike, Lima, VK2ZJB. No worries, thank you for the contact. I'll have to give you 73s and go back to my presentation. Very much appreciated. Have a good evening, VK2ZJB going for that.
Sayonara.
Please forgive my rudeness for wrapping up a short QSO.
Thank you very much, VK2ZJB.
So there we go, that's actually a really quick demonstration. That's what the audio quality is like. As you see, it's a little bit robotic, but that's what you get from low bandwidth digital communications. You will find that it's very, very. You'll find that it's very, very.
What's
He has,
that
and I'm going to rudely ignore him, unfortunately. I can't sit here and have QSO while I'm standing in front of everyone. I have to offend one person, not a whole room full of them. But as you can see, you can hear the voice is a little bit robotic. It's indicative of most digital communications. A lot of people feel that D-Star is actually worse at that than DMR. They think DMR and P25 have some of the best voice. D-Star and Fusion not so much, which is counterintuitive to me. Fusion runs higher bandwidth. D-Star, I mean, this will come back to forward error correction, I suppose.
Comes down to your algorithm.
Yes, yep, your codecs, your algorithms, forward error correction, the whole lot. And that's what makes the difference between all of the technologies. So that's Hoseline. So if you go to the brandmeister.network website, you can go there and have a look, have a listen, and click on it and see what's going around. So you'll get a bit of an idea for it.
Jesse,
Yep.
you're not going to use this technology to talk to someone on your own repeater to clean up their signal or something like that. This is designed to run over the backbone and the internet. Is it? Like,
I mean, it's not uncommon for me. So when I was testing this, I had situations where nobody was returning a CQ on 91. It was getting late at night here. It was getting to funny hours of the day overseas. I've been known to pick up Hoseline just to listen to myself. Go, yes, it's going out through the modem. Yes, I can hear it. No, it's not dropping packets. All that sort of stuff. So I have used it for diagnostics, but you're correct. It's not intended for that. What you would probably do is use, there's a parrot talk group. So if you set the parrot talk group and talk to it, there's a short delay, it'll repeat back to you what you just said so you can hear it. Good manners dictates that you use the parrot talk group, not the worldwide.
You were getting an echo.
Yes.
Is that just the setup here?
Yes. So the echo is because there's a delay between what we're hearing here and what was coming through my computer. That's why I pulled the volume off of my computer, because you can all hear it through the radio at a similar sort of volume, and even I was getting confused standing here, I couldn't hear which one was which. But that's where the echo came from. It's just the two different routes, two different decoding paths, two different time frames.
You would have gone to a master. So your radio talks to your repeater, which goes to a master site, and then back to your notebook. Would that be the path?
No. So it's network. So it's a distributed
Well,
network.
you're not picking it up on. You're picking up on the brand master site.
That's
not
correct.
off the repeater.
So the path there would be radio, repeater, 5052 master. It'll route to whichever other master handles the comms on the Brandmaster website, back to my computer.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to, when I was speaking to the fella in Japan, if I was speaking to just the Japanese talk group, the route would be phone, our repeater here, 5052 master, the master where he is, his repeater, back to his radio. So if I was to key up just your call sign, so I can enter your DMR ID and key up only your radio. And if I do that, that doesn't bug anybody else. Nobody else hears it.
Jesse,
Yep.
the 505 master
Yep.
is not the best one because it was like the D-Star repeater that we had, the Clayton's one. Worked a while and it didn't.
Yep.
I normally go via the Dutch one, and 505 is my secondary one.
Okay, so I think it's progressed a little bit from there. There's actually multiple masters in Australia. We've got 5052 New South Wales, 5053 Victoria, 5054 Queensland, and they're managed by different people, and they do seem to handle it a lot better.
505 was down for about 5 days.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just recently one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't seen that yet, but as we'll do, I will show you the repeater side of it. Should that ever happen, I can change that on our side. It's a nothing task, and we can go through another master. One thing you've got to keep in mind: if you're going to use masters on the other side of the world, you are adding propagation delay. It does take a finite amount of time to send that data to somewhere else. Now, if I'm sending it from GSM modem to Australia, it's going to hop through the local service providers. It'll be very quickly onto a backbone, and off the backbone to an Australian router in probably 10 hops or less. If I'm sending it over to a Dutch one, 20 hops easily, because you've got international routers, you've got international ISPs, and every hop adds a propagation delay. And it might be tolerable for 1 or 2 people, but you get a whole bunch of people on there, and that propagation delay slows down the conversation and slows everything down a lot. So it's not impossible, it's not even a bad idea, it's just would not be my first preference. So we've seen hose line. We're not going to touch on to extended routing and all that sort of stuff, because that's kind of the repeater side of it. Now I can log in here as myself. I do want, and I'll raise this up with the, I'm going to raise this up with the board, with the committee, but I do want more than myself on here. So currently I am the only syshop for the Maddens Plains repeater, so I can control from here, wherever I am, which talk groups are routed. I can control, I can usually see where the repeater is, what it's up to. Go. So currently it's set to my home is the location of the repeater. You can see I'm the only syshop there. And this is what I'm talking about here, static talk groups and dynamic talk groups. So if I go and key up dynamic talk groups, I can actually key up a scheduled static. So if someone gets in touch with me and says, hey, I want to jump on this net on DMR talk group XYZ, I can go, no worries, when's the net on? And I can add a scheduled static route in there so that it jumps that route in before the net starts. You can jump on, listen to it. You don't have to key it up. You don't have to wait for anything. It'll start coming through. And when it's at the end of that time, it'll jump it back out. Clusters, I haven't had much of a play with clusters. You can see the configurations for the two different talk groups there. So time slot 1 I've got set to worldwide 91. Time slot 2 I've got to 505, and it's actually 5052, which is New South Wales and Australia as a whole. Now what I have up here in the other one, this is actually directly logged into the repeater. So this will not be publicly available. This will be available to only a select few people for security reasons. I don't like opening these ports up for everybody to access on the internet because you get like a Raspberry Pi. It is a glorified pocket calculator. Denial of service attack can be carried out by your PC. And you can drop the whole lot. So I don't really want to open it up unnecessarily. But you can see here, I've only got the DMR technologies turned on. Sorry, someone might grab me a glass of water. You can see I've only got the DMR technologies turned on. I've got D-Star, Fusion, P25 turned off. We've got a Fusion to DMR bridge and an NXDN. So NXDN is a new technology. I know very, very, very little about it, so that's why I haven't spoken to it tonight. And the Fusion to DMR bridge, I haven't got a Fusion radio to test. Just have water.
I was looking for us.
Oh God, not that fussy. The Fusion, so I wouldn't mind actually trying out the Fusion to DMR bridge. Theoretically, that should allow you to listen to and interact with DMR via a Fusion radio. I would like to see a lot more of that. Now, the other thing I've seen a lot of on here, but I haven't had time to make work, is a bridge between DMR and the analog. Oh my God, it's just failed me. Sorry?
VK?
Yeah, the one I use on FM on Saturday mornings. That's yeah, I do believe there's a bridge from D-Star to Echo Link. I've had very, very little to do with it. Haven't been able to make it work yet. Now, the DMR repeaters, especially the Brandmeister repeaters, do support location services. So it's supposed to be able to bridge from the repeater to IARS. I've only had my HD1 radio for a few weeks, so I haven't actually managed to get that up and running. I do want to have that running before it goes in, because I want to actually use that one myself. If you're using the MARC network, they do ask that you turn off location services, so do not broadcast your position. Now, when you key up on DMR, as part of the packet header, it sends your ID, it sends destination, sends your location if you've got that turned on. So it's not taking up any extra room, it's not taking up a time slot or anything else like that. It just goes along in the information. So that's there. I don't know, do we need to go through any configuration?
This is a Yaesu Fusion repeater.
Correct.
How is it talking? There?
Right. So the MMDVM modem that I talked about earlier, I've taken it into the output on the back of the DR1 repeater. They're actually designed to be able to pull audio in and out. I actually haven't even lifted the case on that repeater to do this. It's just plugged into the socket on the back and plugs into the MMDVM modem. Brilliant design, absolutely love it.
No modification, no warranty stickers.
No.
Damage.
I do enjoy avoiding warranties, I won't lie, but I have not touched it. Everything is intact. This is actually so straightforward that you should be able to do this yourself with your own radio at home if you want to. You can set up your own MMDVM hotspot. It is the long way around, you can buy hotspots for it, but you can set it up at home to be used. In fact, after I'm done with this one, I will be setting up my own my own Brandmeister system at home, because if there's some new technology that comes in, I want to be able to play with it without disrupting you guys, and before we roll it out.
Yes, so that's, you said you've got DMR turned on there at the moment.
Yep.
So if I've got my P25 radio, I can't go through that unless there's a bridge from P25 to DMR.
I can turn P25 on.
Aha, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah, but if it's DMR, I can't go through a P25.
But that means then when it hits talking on in P25, you won't be able to use DMR.
Yep. So see how that's just gone red on us? That's it. You can't use anything other than DMR. And while that's orange, you can't use anything other than DMR. I've set the timeout to be very short so that it can coexist. And it coexisted relatively well with D-Star, but I had it bridged to one of the reflectors, and that made my life hell because the reflector would pick up on activity and I couldn't get on anything else. Depending on how tolerant everyone is, I mean, this isn't a commercial environment, we're all here in the hobby. I am very much open to turning the tech on, listening to the feedback I get. If I start getting a lot of feedback going, hey, I'm trying to use technology XYZ and I can never do it, I can then start looking at turning stuff back off. But if I can turn it all on and we can all happily coexist, leave on, use it.
So you can have more than one thing turned on at once.
You can have it all turned on, but as I touched on earlier, if I'm going to talk, if I'm on time slot 1, communicating on DMR,
Yes.
D-Star's locked out, Fusion's locked out, P25's locked out, everything else is locked out.
Right, but you finish your conversation.
I finish my
When you
conversation.
think that, and somebody
Yep.
else comes in on P25, the repeater will pick it up and have to
That's
go
right.
with
So
that.
P25, whoever's on P25 can talk.
Yep.
I'm locked out on DMR, D-Star's locked out, so on and so forth. So only one technology at a time.
Timeout tails on that, so that you.
Highly
don't actually-
configurable. So I've got it set now, I think I had it set something like 20 seconds. Because I look at it and say, well, if someone hasn't spoken on something in 20 seconds, your conversation's over. Shorter than that, you run the risk of the conversation ending. Bang, other tech comes on and you disappear. Longer than that, you run the risk of domination where one technology is running all the time. Now look, this is straightforward. I can do this again. So if we find that there is an uptake and we do want to do it, I have no qualms whatsoever about building up another repeater and say putting it at Knights Hill, different frequencies, so that we can have 2 lots of tech and we can divide the tech. I'm very happy to do that. However we want to do it. This is the first of many. Yeah. Okay. So yes. So when I've configured the repeater, the repeater itself's been configured to a 25 kilohertz channel. So as I aligned it, so when I set this up, I actually had to align it. And the way I did that, I set it up, I got the instructions out, I've got SDRs coming out my ears at home, so I put the SDR on, looked on the scope, and followed the instructions to align it. So I align it on DMR, because DMR is the widest out of all of them. D-Star then falls in line, Fusion falls in line after that, because it's non-brutal in the system for some reason. So the repeater is set to 25 kilohertz, but it undermodulates.
Yeah.
So you do get the narrower bandwidth.
So in the US, I'm guessing, I think the narrow band from the repeaters in like California Bay or
Yeah.
San Francisco Bay. Does that mean you can run this on a narrow?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fine. It undermodulates, so it'll probably sound quieter to your ear if you're
That's
going
comes
to
out on the other technology that's handled at the other end.
Yeah.
What's that block 1 mean? Yeah. It's
That is
not block 1.
SMS down
Yeah.
there. One that is. That's sent. They have sent some either a message, so it does support the use of SMS messages,
Yeah.
or it's sent a sent location. So if I turn on this other radio here, that's got like I think I might have turned location services off, but when I've got location services on, mine will constantly pop up on there and say 3 blocks, 3 blocks, 3 blocks. So I've set it to broadcast to position every 120 seconds while I've been testing it, and it comes up and says SMS 3 blocks. So it sends a small amount of information. Now,
If
No, John can go.
when you're in a local situation,
Yep.
one mobile talking to another one through your repeater,
Yep.
have you got to dial up a group?
Yeah, preference would be to use talk group 9. So if I go on talk group 9, I will only key up this repeater, and people on talk group 9 will hear it. Now, one thing I'm going to show you, actually, while I've got that. So what I'll do is I'll bring my little toy forward. So you can see here I've got the various talk groups set up. Local. So if I key it up there, that's actually keyed up talk group 9. And where are we?
Cloud function internet offline. Locally.
Sorry?
Cloud function internet offline.
Yes, I have configured the repeater to run like that. If the internet's offline, I kind of want to know about it though, because I don't want it staying like that. It means that I can't touch it.
You can't administer it.
That's right. It makes life very, very difficult. Now, where are we? A little awkward doing this. Sorry. Now, these radios, the MD380s, have got a firmware hack that enables you to do things like set talk groups manually, monitor the networks, and this one is actually really useful, is promiscuous mode. So, yeah, my radio's a bit of a slut, it will sleep around quite happily. But what that means, so you can see that I've got that set up to local, so that should only ever hear local traffic. But if I jump over to talk group 2 and key it up, so you can see there, I'm trying to talk to a different talk group there, and it's actually picking it up even though it's not keyed up for that talk group. I actually have no idea what that talk group is. That's a misconfiguration in my other radio. It also, however, is a good demonstration. I can run both radios here happily together. It's not desensing, it's still transmitting just fine. And you can actually see it crop up and say, hey, it's me, I'm in Picton. It's a bit of a lie, New South Wales, so it does identify it. That's actually part of the firmware hack for the MD380 radios. Now, when I mentioned earlier that I can get those for $120, I'm more than happy to order a whole bunch of them if there are a few of you interested. And I will preload the firmware on it and I'll pre-configure a number of things for you so that you don't have to mess around with it.
But you don't need that hack if you've got use the radios.
If you use the HD1 here, you definitely do not need to use the hack. So this radio you'll find is a little bit easier. I've got it set up. I've got 2 channels. So as I said, I'm still kind of learning this radio a little bit. So I can't actually tell you what the, unlike the other radio, it's not popping up and telling me who's calling. Where this radio will actually tell me who's calling.
Both of them said promiscuous.
So we go G1 TDN, that's actually Trevor. I was liaising with the other night. So this one, this TYT here is set to promiscuous mode. The other one isn't. But setting the other radio to promiscuous mode is honestly just a simple case of going to the menu and going band A, and I can go, where are we? Promiscuous.
And go confirm.
Bang, and turn, yeah, this is set to promiscuous, I lie, look at that. Alright, one other thing I didn't touch on, colour codes. So they call them a colour code, but it's basically a number, it's like a CTCSS code. So when you set your radio up, you set the colour code for your local repeater. Almost all amateur DMR systems use colour code 1, but that works like CTCSS. So if I wanted to set the repeater up on colour code 2, unless you know it's colour code 2, you can't key it up. Promiscuous mode will not save you. You just won't be able to get into the system. It's a very minor level of security. I think that basically covers it off. Now, I've got 2 radios here. You're all welcome to have a play with it. Please respect the fact, I'll come to you in a sec. Please respect the fact that is on my call sign. I don't mind anybody using it as long as I'm nearby. Cross that, you never touch it ever again, I swear to God. But feel free to have a play. I do encourage it. Sorry, Brian.
Regarding the D-Star,
Yep.
will new users have to re-register on the D-Star network via RMP, or will the DMR ID 5052 whatever, will that be sufficient?
D-Star still operates via the D-Star network. So the Brandmeister system logs into the D-Star network.
I realise that.
You must be registered on the D-Star network for it to work. So you can ignore DMR entirely if you want to. If you've been using D-Star, you get on use D-Star, the same as you always have. And it should continue to work.
All I've got to do is remember how to program the bloody radio.
I know. So
Yep. And when you do, please tell me, because I need to know. I've tried to muck around with it, and either everyone on the C reflector is really, really snobbish and won't return my CQ, or something's not routing and something's not working.
It's Rob's,
Yeah, well, when I
I learned it all years ago. And it's still
when I first started on D-Star with
Yep.
the Raspberry Pi and a access point,
Yep.
you more or less had to wait to get on.
Yeah.
Now, Reflector 1
Yep.
is about the only one that's being used,
Yeah.
and occasionally Reflector 30 and 23.
Yep.
So,
You can give us a call anytime, Jesse. I'll come up on
Yep.
D-Star or DMR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
That's
a test or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. No, I will do. I will do exactly that.
So, Jesse,
Yep.
given that your explanation and your presentation is great, I'm still sitting there going, I buy one of these off eBay and I go, yeah, you'll be here next meeting. And our next meeting was going to be a show and tell. I wonder if there's interest in maybe the next meeting as well as being show and tell. It's also bring along your radio that you just bought off eBay and you're looking
Yes.
dumbly at.
Yes.
Because Jesse will be
Yes.
here.
I am more than happy to do that.
And we'll have the
I
repeat on
wasn't
the air
going
by
to
then.
do a 2-hour-long presentation on programming a radio because I promise you will all be asleep.
Is there some program that Brian is just
Yep.
citing the fact that someone downloaded some program from Oslo into his radio? Can you download, like
So-
we all buy one of these radios, can you just download a set of configurations?
Yep. So anybody who gets one of these radios, the TYT, they call them code plugs. I've got a code plug programmed up. I will flash it with the MD380 tools so you can mess with it. I'll give you the code plug so you've got a starting base, and I'll show you how to modify it. That's something that's best done one-on-one, not as a group, because unless you're sitting there doing it yourself, you'll watch it, you'll walk out of here and you'll go, oh crap, how did I do that? So I'll take you through it. Anyone that wants to do it, I'll take you through it one-on-one. I'll take you through in small groups. If you like. Yep. I'll talk to Troy, get Troy's help, and we'll make a YouTube video if you like. I'm more than happy to do that.
But yeah, you're happy to provide code plugs.
Absolutely, yes.
A YouTube video on code plug, I could buy a radio and be up and running.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And as I said, I'm more than happy, if you don't want to know about the programming side of it, you just want to use it, I'm more than happy for you to bring it in, give it to me with the contact details, and I'll go and program it and bring it back to you.
Brian is using D-Star.
Yes.
He's sitting there with his D-Star.
Yep.
You're using this repeater on DMR.
Yep.
How does he know when you drop out? When you finish?
Well, there'll be one of two things. You can either jump on the Brandmeister website and have a look and watch what's going on in the repeater, or both radios will tell you when there's activity on the channel through the use of the green light there.
No matter which one of those modes
Yeah.
are happening.
So if I
Plus 20 seconds after it goes out.
where am I?
Bit hard getting it up when you're driving.
only 3 days.
Is there a mobile?
I want to get into this because
There we go.
it's one other distraction.
So, yep.
Difficult at first, but it
I
comes.
think what he's trying to say, if you're driving along and you key it up,
Yep.
if there's already traffic there, you're not going to get in.
The radio will tell you if it's not working. So let's deliberately drop this out So I'm going to deliberately drop it out and try and key up. See that, how it comes up, says repeater fail? I have my radio set to silent, so I don't want to annoy the crap out of everyone around me if I'm mucking around and I get sick of being beeped at. But if you try to key up, and the repeater does not respond, it'll come back and tell you that the repeater has failed and it will not engage. You're not going to pick it up and key it up and talk away and then go, oh, what the hell, it's not working. You'll get that feedback, you'll know that it's not working.
Same with FM?
You wouldn't operate FM through this. It's not set up to repeat on FM, it'll only repeat digital currently.
So they have another repeater for FM?
You'd have to use a different repeater for FM.
Okay.
One more question.
Go for it.
If, say for instance, you have connected to talk group 997.3,
You don't have another FM? Another repeater?
do you have talk group disconnect in your code plug that you can disconnect it, or will it automatically change out, time out?
It'll time out. If you stop transmitting on it, it'll time out.
And will you get an announcement to say talk group disconnect?
No. That's something DMR doesn't do particularly well. It doesn't tell you when talk groups are connected or disconnected.
I know that.
I know, it was a loaded question, but we didn't touch on that.
Little experience.
Yes.
Dorothy Dix.
Yeah.
Jesse,
Yep.
you are only talking about UHF, aren't you?
In this context, yes.
Yeah.
However, there is nothing stopping me turning that over to VHF.
That's a dual band repeater.
Yep, I can actually
And
literally change it to VHF.
But if you do that, we lose our FM facilities
On
on the
UHF.
repeater side.
Oh yeah, that's right, that's correct. So the UHF repeater,
So we're all forced to go to digital.
No, this is 8725. This is like 6850 or something like that. This is the UHF repeater.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
UHF
yeah, but
repeater.
if you do it on UHF
Yep. You have
and
to use-
VHF,
No.
No.
you're only going to run
Either or. Yeah, either or.
either
Don't-
or.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I will. I don't think anyone would suggest it, and I will protest loudly
Yeah,
if anyone wants to tamper with 850.
yeah.
I love my digital. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not giving up my analog. I like my analog FM.
With that said, Jesse, sorry, I haven't talked to you about this, but
Uh-oh.
we are actually licensed at Maddens Plains for 8725, but we're also licensed on VHF for D-Star.
Yep.
We have the cavities, the antennas.
Yes.
So
we
the
can
D-Star
run it.
repeater sitting there plugged in as a dumb piece
Yep.
of gear because there's no internet connectivity. So
Yeah. We can run digital on that. That's no
we're
problem at
licensed
all.
at digital now on VHF
Yep.
as well.
We can do it. If you've got other hardware, I'll happily do it. I have a spare MMDVM modem at home and a spare Raspberry Pi, so I work on it.
So for the sake of another DR1X,
Yeah. Doesn't even have to be a DR1X.
we can't use the D-Star in the back anyways.
Probably not. I don't think the D-Star is quite that friendly.
No.
The DR1X I love because I literally just plugged it in. Sorry?
Is there you've got the two classes of radio there on the desk,
Yep.
a couple of $100, $240. Is
Yep.
there a similar mobile to that?
The mobile, I've been hunting around for a decent mobile rig myself. I've found one, I think it's manufactured by TYT. That's I think it's about $350. I don't like the look of it, I don't like the way it appears, but that's me in my personal opinion. Everyone else might be quite happy to run it.
So if Trevor's $500 on eBay, not going to do the job, or?
Oh yeah, if there's a $500 DMR radio on eBay, we'll do it, yeah, absolutely. You can pick up second-hand Motorola DMR radios for a couple $100. I've accidentally let a couple slip through my fingers in the past, but there's no reason they can't be used at all. They don't have the nice facilities of colour displays and telling you who's calling, but they certainly work, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well there you go, ready to go, Kieran.
Your final question.
Does it work on a G5RV? Yeah?
With a really, really, really good antenna tuner, yes.
God, I lost bloody train of thought now.
Let the stage, Brian.
Will it accept private call?
Oh yeah, if I go and key up your DMR ID and key up the repeater, yeah, it should do. There's nothing in there to stop it.
But it's a bit of a funny to say a private call through a repeater when there's
Yep.
50,000 ears listening there.
Well, private is a misnomer because I tell you now, if I've got it turned on onto promiscuous mode, there's nothing private about it. I'll hear everything you say. You can theoretically turn encryption on, and you are wildly in breach of your license conditions by doing it.
Yeah.
Just you go to the try picking this down.
Yes,
Exactly.
I'll bring it.
Is it worth sending an email to the other two clubs saying if you want to
Yep.
make an order, make sure you bring your money in for the try picnic thingy or whatever.
Oh, just come and see me at the Try Picnic thing, or preferably email me.
Because obviously you want more people to use this.
Yeah.
So given the two radios here,
Yep.
despite the fact that one's about twice the price of the other, would you recommend getting the more expensive one just straight out, right, because it's simpler and it's going to be more used? It's
Yep.
similar.
Yep. I love the HD one.
It does
It's
VHF, UHF,
Yep,
analog.
VHF, UHF. I can actually key up the Maddens Plains repeater on VHF from my front driveway with that radio, and none of my other handhelds will do that. It is a very good quality radio, and yeah, as I said, it's very easy for me to use. I've sat down
It's
there.
not just DMR.
No, it's DMR, UHF, VHF, FM. And I can now use one radio, whereas previously I had the TYT and I had the Balfang. They'll go into the corner of the cupboard somewhere, and I'll stick with the HD one because it's more powerful, it's more efficient on batteries, it's much more comfortable to use. Don't do it because, as you know, I can't say publicly do it, but don't. You can program it up with the UHF CB frequencies if you want to as well.
Which one's that, Jesse? Sorry,
That's the HD one.
the HD
That's
one.
this one here.
That's, you get them on eBay? Or is it-
Yep, eBay, $250. Again, if I can get enough of these, I've got a contact, I will email them, and I'll try and get a really good price. So if I can get a list of people who are prepared to buy them, I will chase down an order for the HD ones, and I'll also chase down an order for the MD380s.
What's the actually one?
Do I start your list now? Email please. I have a memory like a sieve. I drive a stupid amount of kilometres and work a stupid amount of hours. If you tell me now, I will forget it. But email me please, and I'll keep a log of it, and I'll say, let's give it, what's Tri-Club Picnic in 2 weeks? Let's give it a month. So,
Next delivery before the next meeting.
no, there'll be an order placed by the next meeting.
Okay, all right.
Delivery will be probably 2-3 weeks after that.
What's the radio company?
So the HD one here, I ordered that one with the GPS on it. That's got the handheld mic, it's got a hands-free mic similar to your mobile phone, programming cable, battery obviously, belt clip. The MD380 is a similar sort of deal. It had all the similar sort of accessories.
So you don't need to go and buy it.
Have you got Bluetooth?
Yeah, it's all in there. No, they don't have Bluetooth.
So the HD one, what's the brand name? Is it?
Aliunce, AILUNCE. But as I said, if there's enough of you interested in it, please let me know before we rush out and buy them, because I'll get a bulk rate from the vendor.
Are you familiar with the Anytone radios that blokes in Canberra are using?
With the which ones?
Anytone.
I know I am aware of them. I'm not familiar with
You
them.
have heard nothing.
I think they're a 2x2 different name.
They are, yeah, a lot of them you'll find that. TYT's a rip-off of Tetra. They used to be called Tetra, but class action or a serious lawsuit of some kind took place. They've shortened it to TYT. You might see HYT out there, which is still the TYT company trying to masquerade as Tetra. You'll find quality TYT radios absolutely top notch. Very, very impressive quality. Sorry?
They look a bit Yasu-ish.
Yeah, I look at them and go, they're a bit Tetra-ish.
They're probably the Chinese version of the Yasu.
Yeah, they probably all come out of the same factory, but that's a solid radio. I've got that kicking around in my backpack, thumped around for 6 months comfortably. And it shows a couple of marks on the screen, and that's it. The only complaint I've got is for a radio that's got a twist on-off button, or on-off knob. I am horrified at the amount of times that's been turned on accidentally in my bag, and I've pulled it out when I'm sitting waiting for somebody and go, oh, let's give digital a bit of a go. Click, click, click.
That happens all the time.
Yeah. That's a twist knob. Turn it on for God's sake. You can't accidentally turn on. So anyway, I'll leave that. Yeah.
Is there a plug-in for SDR Sharp? that will decode and put this stuff up?
Short answer is yes. You are talking about, oh, no, it's not a plug-in, it's a separate program.
Oh, you can pipe it into something.
Yeah, you've got to pipe the audio into it. I think it's,
I can look it up.
yeah, DVM or something like that. Flick me an email, I'll find it. I'll find the name when I get home and I'll tell you.
What is your email?
Let's go with, because it's so easy, VK2ZJB at wia.org.au. That'll come through to me.
Okay.
Alright, so if anyone wants to have a play, feel free to pick up the radios and have a play. Dan, feel free to use my call sign. Any of the other F calls, feel free to use my call sign. Please do it when you're within earshot of me so we're not in breach of anything. Alright, thank you everybody.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
Thursday week, 5 o'clock picnic.
I'll go in.
Talk to Jessica on radio.